Hello, Lisa. Hi. Welcome to our fifth Get Mindful talk. We just decided that we will switch the language so that we start with the English talk, and then the second talk of the week will be in German. And we also decided, just that all of you are informed about it, that we would love to choose a bigger topic and go more into the depth. So we will start in English and tackle kind of the first part of the topic, and then the next step of the talk will be in German. So our topic for today is: what are our options how to act? So we talked about getting mindful in the first 2 weeks, and now we want to act mindfully. So I think I can bring this on already at the beginning. We, because a lot of you listening to us have also listened to our mindfulness talks, which we had in the first weeks of the lockdown. And the three big options are love it, leave it, or change it. It's not just a calendar quote, it's like really truth in it. So, Lisa, just let us start with these three options. What is really meant by this, and how can we use it for us?
Okay, thank you. For me, I think the one thing that I notice the most when working with people around around mindfulness, around this topic, is we have the misconception that mindfulness is kind of passive, that we have to, accept whatever is. And on the one hand, yes, we're always saying, everybody who promotes mindfulness promotes the idea of acceptance. We need to accept what is, but this is not a passive kind of acceptance. It's and we've spoken about this, I know, in our earlier talks. It's a very active acceptance. I accept what is, I see what is, and I say, okay, and then I make a decision of what to do. And that's what you're talking about now, are these three choices that we have of how to deal with each and every situation. And it always boils down to these three options. There are no other options to choose from. The one option is I accept it and I just do nothing. That's one thing. And when we say accept it, this acceptance is I accept it and I stop the internal and external complaining about it. So I accept it with no mental noise and I do nothing. That's option one. Option two is I accept it with no mental noise and I change it, I do something. Mm-hmm. And my third option is always I accept it with no mental noise and I stand up and I leave. Yeah. So I always have these three options, and I can, choose through them, and it's not passive at all. There's no passivity involved in it. I don't always have to change a situation. I can often just accept it and do nothing. This is true for, I have found personally, for most of things. I can just say and stop the internal complaining. And I find just by stopping the internal and external complaining, I don't really need to do anything else. That pretty much takes care of it.
Yeah, but then we are in the option of love it, right? When we are accepting it and just doing nothing.
That's also a very Byron Katie, loving what is. And yes, love it, but that's sometimes very, very painful. I can't love it. I can accept it, but I can at least accept it is the way it is and stop the internal and the external complaining. To stop the mental noise about it. Just say, okay, this is how it is, and I can't do anything about it. Yeah, and so I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and for me, that's the interesting point, to stop the internal noise and the internal external complaining, because I think maybe it's easier, or not maybe, but for sure it's easier to say on a high level, okay, the day wasn't like I wished it would proceed, but now it's late, I'm totally tired, but at least I'm sitting on my couch and yeah, okay, at least now I'm sitting here. I wished I would sit here 2 hours earlier, but nevertheless, I'm now sitting here. But then internally, I'm like on fire. Oh, no, why did it happen like this and that and this? I wish would have happened in another way. I think that's exactly the noise you're talking about, right? And then it's not really accepted on a profound level.
That's the noise. That's the noise. And that noise just makes our lives miserable. That intern, I call it like mental noise. That's the term
Yeah.
that I found is very, very fitting to this. It's this internal complaining about it. And, you know, if you look at the situation we're in now with the pandemic, you know,
Yeah.
there's not much at an individual level. There are some things that some people are doing, you know, if you're a virologist or if you're a scientist or something. But for most of us, there's nothing we can do about this.
Yeah.
We have to take option one, you know, it's just here we are. And so it stops the internal complaining about it and stop the external complaining about it. And this completely changes the way we experience this situation. It just, if like you say, it's just, oh, here it is, you know, and
Yeah.
and you know, find something in it that you can enjoy. And there's always something there. Just stop the complaining.
Yeah, but this, like, how can we do stopping the complaining? So first, I would say we have to get mindful on this about what am I complaining and why can't I enjoy that? At least I'm now sitting on the couch. So, and then maybe it's even like multiple reasons. So it's not only the one thing, because then it would be only the one thing I could change or love or leave. But there are different things. Or also another example, getting back to Corona situation, like that the borders between, in my example, Austria and Germany are closed. So okay, I can accept it, but it's causing feelings not seeing the lovely people living in Germany, like family, friends, and this is like also kind of has something good that I'm missing them because that shows that they mean something to me, that they are important to me, etc. So how can we accept these situations or reduce the internal mental noise, the complaining about, oh, it's a pity that the borders are still closed.
And good thing you asked too, because that's kind of the key. And we spoke about that last week as well. Is first waking up to the fact that you do have internal complaining. You know, waking up to that mental noise, to all the thoughts that are going on in your head. Most of the time, we don't even hear it. You know, it's just we're so used to this internal complaining that we're not even aware that's happening.
Yeah.
As you say, is to notice that this is happening. And then again, I come back to my famous, you know, what do you do about it? Take your focus out of your thoughts and put them into, in particularly helpful is to put them into your body and feel what you're feeling. And you know, this mental complaining is probably creating some kind of feelings, you know, of anger or sadness or loneliness, and so to really to take that opportunity to get to know that feeling self, you know, to get to know those that of what you feel, get to know yourself from an emotional level. That's uh, you know, probably one of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves and for sure to the people around us is the ability to be with our emotional landscape. And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of, you know, stick to itiveness
Yeah.
to really feel that. And this is what we need to do. This is the most helpful, is to understand, oh yes, there is mental noise. I am engaging, you know, my mind is engaging in internal complaining.
Yeah.
And I hear it, and so I just keep taking the energy out of it. I take the focus out of it as often as possible, and notice what I'm feeling, and allow myself to feel that. and just increase, you know, my emotional landscape, increase my tolerance to my emotional landscape, and increase my awareness of my emotional landscape. That's, like I say, the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves, and for sure we can give to our families, is the ability to feel uncomfortable feelings, to not have to reactively do things, you know, to not have these reactions, these knee-jerk reactions that we tend to have, so as to avoid feeling uncomfortable emotions.
Yeah. So talking about like accepting the situation, and then our three options that love it, leave it, or change it, and we are in this love it part, love it in the understanding of accepting it, and like yeah, accepting it without the mental noise would then be not only accepting like the events in the outer world, but also in our body, in the emotions, accepting the feelings which goes with it, and then we come so nice back to our three areas of mindfulness. That's such
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. That is so important, is to accept that feeling then, and to say, oh, you know, I am impatient, or I do feel, you know, frustration and sadness and all these things. And then not to add, you know, more concrete on top of our concrete on top of our concrete, to then be angry at ourselves for feeling something that we don't think we should be feeling. So yes, it's a real challenge, I think, for us to develop the capacity for feeling uncomfortable emotions, for feeling emotions that we don't think we should be feeling right now. Oh God, I should be, you know, I should have that behind me already, or I should know better, or this shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Accepting what is accepting what's in the external world, and really accepting what's happening in the internal world.
Yeah. So making it very concrete, it would be in this example, okay, like we can't do anything about it, that the borders are still closed. And yes, I am whatever, sad, or whatever emotion comes with it. And like accepting, yeah, it makes me sad that the borders are still closed and that I don't know when they will be opened again.
Yeah.
For example. Yeah.
And feeling that sadness, and noticing how the sadness manifests.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a kind of a heaviness in your chest, or maybe you feel it lower down in your stomach, in your guts, or maybe you tend to get tense here. To notice this, and to kind of feel that, and get a more intimate relationship with the way these emotions show up in your body, and just to feel them, and to allow that to be there. And then what I found personally is, the more I allow myself to feel these emotions, the less I am controlled by them. So the more, first off, they're not nearly as bad as you think they are. You always, you know, the thoughts about that emotion is always much worse than the emotion itself.
Yeah.
And, so I just have, when we come back to that word, my favorite word, you develop a sort of okayness about your emotional landscape. And then, you know, oh, okay, a sadness comes up, and then it comes for a while, it stays a bit, and then it leaves again. It has a natural kind of a lifespan, and I can deal with that. And it's not here the whole time. It's not like I'm always sad. I'm sad when I thought about that. That thought came up, borders are closed, I can't see my friends, and then the sadness arises. And if I allow that sadness to kind of be there, I develop that capacity, and which increases my empathy for other people, for sure, who are feeling that emotion. And it increases my empathy for myself, and my ability to feel that emotion. And then I also notice that these emotions are fleeting. They come, they stay for a while, and they, most importantly, they go again. And so I don't have to get so worked up about it.
Yeah. And maybe coming to the other options of reaction, like leave it or change it. I especially want to come back to this situation, and like all day situation we have, and this is also for many people valid currently during Corona times, that there's so much to do, or so much to do by yourself, where you have had more support with childcare or with household or whatever you have, so that you are kind of have too many tasks for 24 hours, and then also including your sleep. So you are sitting far too late on the couch, and then you wish you would sit on the couch. So there, maybe you are quicker in this change it option. Leave it is maybe not really an option. Also, I'm pretty sure we come to the point that we have in every situation the three options. But yeah, like you discover your emotional landscape. You see, okay, you are furious, you are angry, not only on yourself, but maybe also on other people. So what's there the step to get to this change it situation? How do I know what to change first and where to start, etc.?
Well, I think the most important thing in the change it option is any action or anything that I do. It's less important what I do. It's more important how I do it. And anything that I want to do, of course, it's important that I do it with no ego involvement. You know, and what tends to happen is that we feel this uncomfortable emotion, and then some kind of reaction will come out of it with that will definitely be reflecting this emotion. So there'll be some kind of angry reaction to it, or I'll say something and I'll say, oh, you know, like if I'm at a restaurant and I order food and the food comes and it's not good, it doesn't taste good, and then now I have my three options. I accept it and love it. Well, I don't love it because it doesn't taste good, or it's not what I ordered. So I can accept it or change it. Okay, I accept it, and the acceptance is this is what is. They brought me the wrong dish, and now I can call the waiter and I can say, excuse me, this is not what I ordered. Can you please bring me what I ordered? And this is fine. This is fine. What would be difficult, what would be a reactive change it would be, oh my God, look at you, dare to bring me the wrong food. This is all totally wrong. This tastes terrible. Take it away. And I've got all this ego and all this emotion in that reaction. And that's not helpful. That will only help to increase my own pain, my own suffering.
Yeah.
It will increase the suffering, of course, with anybody I touch. So the waiter will then be, you know, he'll catch, it's contagious. He'll catch then my angry virus, and all the people at the table will be touched by it. So I want to, you know, I kind of, in that moment of going into the body, everything, the mind stops. Because if I'm not paying attention to a thought, there is no thought there. So in this act of taking the attention away from my thoughts to this internal complaining and just accepting what is, and going into the body and kind of investigating what I'm feeling, in that moment something will come up. I will be able to do something. I will probably think of something, and that I won't really think of it. A thought of, or a proper response will come to me, and it will not come to me through thinking about it. Yeah. It will come to me from being in the body, from really grounding in that moment, and then generally something appropriate will occur to me, and then I can do that. And again, and I do that without this strong ego involvement.
Yeah, and all we need to do to receive this proper response from our body is to stop the autopilot reaction, right? The ego-driven reaction, and to take one breath and then react, from a more
Right.
subtle.
And then respond. That English has that wonderful word, respond. You know, I take the energy out of my mind. I ground myself in my body. I feel what I'm feeling. And then I respond. Just a spontaneous response will come. And if it's a wonderful response, that's fine. Then maybe it's the only response. And if something still isn't, you know, I can still, it doesn't mean only one, you know, I get to do one thing. I get to do many things. But in between each thing that I'm doing, I can reground myself in my body. So I do something, and then a response from that person will come, and then that kind of, or that situation, and then that can be with me for a moment, and I can feel that, and then I can do my next response. So, you know, we kind of move through these responses, but I slow everything down in that I check in with my emotional body, as it were, in between each response.
Yeah, and would you say that the response is always this, what is coming from the body, and is always in a good intention, like in a positive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Yeah, the mind tends to be reactive. Let's put it that way. If the mind is in a strong emotion, it tends to be have a lot of, you know, ego involvement, and will reflect in that reaction, and will cause the people around me or the situation to catch my emotion. You know, emotion, anger is contagious. We know that. And if I reflect anger out, you know, it's not going to help de-escalate the situation. Let's put it that way. And it's not going to help create a situation that will be satisfactory for me, or for anybody for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really pays to feel my feelings, and then just to acknowledge them, and then to respond without that response being tainted by that emotion.
Yeah, exactly, and not being guided by this emotion.
Exactly. I think somebody said the mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Is just to, you know, it's in that moment that a strong emotion, an uncomfortable emotion comes up. Now is not the time to be listening too much to the mind. Now to slow things down.
I think about this ego involvement, we will also talk more about our next talk. You gave a really good example for it, but there's a lot more to talk about it. But before we come to this point, let's tackle also the third option about this leave it option. Where exactly is this the best thing to do, or to answer it in a more general way, when do I know that I should leave it, whatever it is?
Yeah. But it's hard to say, you know, I think it's difficult to generalize, you know, when can you try to fix things and when should you leave? I think if we're talking about relationships or anything, I think in any time that you are in danger, emotional or physical danger, it's time to leave. Or if people dependent upon you are in danger, it's probably the best option to take. Although that's it, the leave it option always requires that if it's not a dangerous situation, I think I first need to understand what my contribution was to the situation. This is always very important, to understand what am I doing to create the situation. This is also obviously in the change it situation. Very important that I really understand how I contribute to the situations that I'm involved in. And in particularly in the leave it situation, I really need to understand how I contributed to it, or I will leave the situation but create a similar situation down the road again, especially in relationships. We tend to it is. But I would definitely say, for me, if you're in any kind of a physical distress, or if anybody who's dependent upon you is in physical distress, the leave it option needs to be taken. But then we need to sit down, you need to sit down and sort of really understand what your contribution was to that situation.
Yeah, to avoid that you are finding you back up in the same situation or very similar situation in the partnership or whatever.
Definitely. We tend to.
There
We're always 50%, or we always contribute heavily to the situations we're in.
Yeah.
And if we continue doing things the way we've always done things, surprise, surprise, we will always have.
Yeah. So in the end, it shows us where we can heal, right?
Yeah.
What needs to be healed.
Yeah. And it's, a situation that is not perfect, or situations that we want to change, they're coming up all the time. And if I really keep going into myself and keep getting more and more touch with my emotions and with feeling and allowing myself to feel these things, and moving that way through my life, it's fun. It's a real nice journey. I really get to know, without getting all spiritual and all this stuff, but it really makes life a lot nicer, because I begin reflecting out into my own world. And that's what I mean. If you don't understand what your own contribution is, you keep creating the same situation, the same conflicts again and again. The same kind of stuff always keeps coming, and we see the patterns. But as soon as we start seeing ourselves more, as soon as we find the courage, the bravery to feel those uncomfortable feelings, and to go into ourselves and to allow ourselves to be human, that's a big one. We could probably do months of talks on just allowing ourselves to be human, which means allowing ourselves to feel things and to feel uncomfortable things. And the more we do this, the more at peace, the more okayness we find with ourselves. And the more okayness we find with ourselves, the more okayness we reflect out to others, and the more harmonious our lives become.
Yeah.
It really is amazing.
Yeah. And as you just said, it's not always that difficult, right? It can start in a very easy and even fun way, like the journey inside, to discover your emotional landscape. And if you take yourself also not too serious and have fun to discover it, and interesting, this is even also here on my landscape. And it's also not this huge like healing topic or whatever. It's more like, okay, let's get curious about what my emotional landscape is offering. Cool. Great.
Fun.
Just say.
It's kind of fun. It really is an enriching journey. And the more we see ourselves, the more we feel ourselves, the more okay our life becomes, and the more enjoyable we are to be around. We just become less conflictual.
Yeah.
And then we find ourselves in fewer and fewer conflictual situations. We have better relationships with everybody, with the lady at the cash register at the grocery store, with the bus driver, with our children, with our partners, with our family. That's the true test, is the family. I go back, I can't remember who said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend 2 weeks with your parents. These things just become nicer and nicer. The quality of our lives becomes much, much better.
Yeah, exactly. Great, perfect. So let's come to an end at this point, because this has been wonderful words for the end of talking about the 3 options. Love it, leave it, or change it. And to make a quick summary of our talk, it was mainly that we said it all starts with accepting the situation, accept what's happening right now, and then accepting it without the mental noise, without the internal complaint, without the external complaint, and how to do it is to take the focus out of the mind into the body, and to start the journey of the internal emotional landscape, and to find out what is really the feeling which is coming up, and then also not just accepting the situation but also accepting the emotion. And then this is like the loving part, and we talked about the change it option, and this is like you always can react on it, but react from in a responsive way. So what you said, the mind is a good servant but a bad master. So don't take the little a tiny moment to get into your body and to connect with the moment, and then react from this place without ego involvement. And ego involvement we will follow up in our next talk. And then the leave it option is that we always can also leave a situation, but it's very wise to think about it. What's your contribution in this situation? Especially, you said the leave it option is very often in relationships. So especially there, be aware of that. Very likely your part is also 50% of it, and so to really avoid that you will find yourself back in the same situation just with another partner. Think about what's your contribution to the situation, and before you leave the situation and maybe start the change there. And also there, it's starting with the emotions you're feeling inside you. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Lisa, for this talk. And then see you back on our next Get Mindful Talk. Bye-bye. Ciao.